Hello and welcome to today's episode of Rich, Simple Human. I'm Lindsey Frances, legacy and wealth advisor, psychologist, and all things sophrologist. So today is going to be a very exciting show. Stay listening because I'm sitting down with Elmarie Greenaway and we have got a huge conversation to have with you about community building and leadership. In a world that celebrates titles, platforms and achievements, if you're checking your likes because you're in social media, today's discussion is a really, really powerful reminder that the highest calling of leadership isn't status, but service. We might be a chief exec, a founder, investor, or an innovator, and these roles describe brilliantly what we do, but servant defines who we are called to be. Let me repeat that. Servant defines who we are called to be. And we're going to unpack that for those of you that are now sitting back thinking, I'm such a servant, I feel like a slave, I'm exhausted and I've had enough. We are going to meet you where you are at. So please stay tuned. And if you're a man who doesn't think you're servant hearted at all, but you are leading an organisation, I think we're also going to challenge you in that space. Today's guest has spent over a decade doing something most organisations talk about but don't actually master: building genuine human connection at scale. Elmarie and I have been waiting quite a long time to do this show. Our paths have been crisscrossing all along the way, in fact, across multiple countries as well, El. So that's been really exciting.
Yes.
And here's to a connection that is going to be lasting for years and years and years. You've worked across continents as well, and across cultures. You've spent 12 years at HSBC across talent strategy, HR transformation and organisational design. And you've led programmes across 59 countries, building communities that simply didn't exist. You've got a very rare and God-given talent for connecting, knowing how to bring the right people together and making people feel really seen. And I have been benefiting from that already in the short time I've known you. So thank you so much. Today, you and I are going to explore the power of connection, why it matters more than ever, and what we can all learn about being servant-hearted. Welcome officially to the show at last.
Thank you.
I'm so pleased to see you here
Thank
again,
you.
although I saw you last week in human form, which was
Yes.
even more wonderful, of course. Elle, I'm going to start by asking you about your own journey, because you and I are running very separate corporate careers. We also run our own personal ministries. Yours is very much in terms of marketplace and mine is very much around motivation. But we also spend lots of time talking to people about money, which of course is a wonderful thing to talk about. There's plenty of money in the world. It's just not all in the right place at the moment. So that is certainly a calling on both of yours and my hearts. But can I ask you to start? Would you describe yourself as somebody who was always naturally drawn to people, or is connecting with others something you've grown into over time?
Awesome. So thank you so much, Lindsay. I have to say, I genuinely admire the way that you communicate and just the space that you create for conversation. So I feel really privileged to be here. This is my first podcast ever that I've been invited to, as I've stepped into this kind of new era of, the marketplace and business world. And just to say up front that obviously everything that I share is just my personal lived experiences. I'm not here to represent any organization or my place of work or anything like that. So I'm just really thankful just to start off with that. So I think to answer your question, honestly, for me, it is a bit of both. Growing up, I was actually quite a shy and introverted person, which people find shocking to believe. Everyone always thinks that I've just always been a very extroverted, bubbly, connecting kind of individual, but I wasn't. I actually spent most of my childhood growing up on a game farm in Namibia. So Namibia is the neighboring country to South Africa. And I would say it was a very small and contained type of world. So I wasn't surrounded by lots and lots of people all the time. And I think it was at the age of 12 when I was sent to boarding school. And it's not because my parents tried to be unkind or cruel or anything like that. It's just that there wasn't any real good schools close by. And so that is quite a young age to go. I didn't have a choice. And I think you either learn to connect or you're going to struggle alone. And I think in those very early years, that's what shaped me on a very deep level, because that has kind of taught you that connection isn't just a nice to have, but that's actually part of your survival, especially now that you don't have your parents there. There's no one kind of telling you what to do, or a safety blanket or a security network or anything like that. You only have yourself and your network and the friends and the teachers or whoever is around you as a young child. So yeah.
I love that. Connection is crucial to survival. We know that. We are designed to be living in tribes and be connected. And I would like anybody listening just to think about the difference between connecting and networking. In the time that I've been in the marketplace, and I'm nearly 50, so it's been a while, I see ruthless networking behavior that is not true connection. And these are two very different modus operandi. And the way you're talking, Elle, is really about this deep connection that provides us with security, it's in integrity, and it's providing us this support network that we have when we leave our home, when we pick up our cross and go out and leave our mother and father. We have to be in community with other people. And I love the way that you've described that. I'd just like anybody listening to challenge themselves. When am I in true connection, and when am I just merely networking for probably business reasons, or here we go, motivation around money? In the work that you've done, you've managed networks of very, very different people, and you have an ability to work across different cultures, different ranges, and different types of humans, which I admire greatly. Can you tell me, how do you connect with people when they are all so different?
So for me, definitely, I think the foundation has always been to be interesting. You have to first be interested. And I found it quite interesting as well that you brought the servant-hearted topic right at the beginning of the conversation, because that's sort of part of that as well. So that one idea basically has underpinned almost everything that I've done my career and my life so far. And I think it sounds simple, but for most people, when they walk into a room thinking to themselves, oh my gosh, like, what are they going to think of me? What am I going to say? How am I going to come across? And I think if you could just flip that entirely on its back and just think more about the other person and have that servant kind of mindset and thinking, what is going on in their world? Like, what are they excited about? What is alive for them right now? And ask the questions that's going to light them up. Don't just go, and I know there's so many Instagram reels and things that will tell you about, don't ask, how are you? How is your day? How is the weather? I mean, those questions almost switch off a person instantly. But try and think about questions, and you can always memorize some questions that can really, how can I put it, like what science would back is like hitting the dopamine level in the brain, things about like, well, what are you really excited about right now? What is a project that you're working on that's got your energy going, or something a bit more exciting, or even if you bring in a holiday, because let's face it, the brain will light up as soon as you talk about a holiday or something quite exciting. So those kind of questions is something that I've always found will open up people, and you will kind of see the shift. And I wouldn't say that always works 100%. I mean, some people are just not quite ready to open up straight away. Some people are just inclined to be more introverted or more reserved. So in that instance, usually what I'll try and do is just share something about yourself, something real, something authentic that can just break the ice or break that surface, and then see where you can get after that and lean in and ask. And I'm obviously, different strokes for different folks. Not everyone has got the same approach, but curiosity is definitely everything. And I also think, what you should keep in mind is that when you are going into a room full of people, something great is locked up that you just haven't found in someone yet. I mean, you can walk into a room and that could be your next opportunity. I, on my podcast, just interviewed someone the other day where the guy was kind of reluctant to go for a dinner with someone, and that one connection shifted his entire business trajectory, and he went viral, and it was just this incredible story. It's one person shifted everything. And, going into a room, you could meet your next lifelong friend. I mean, you could even lead to like meeting your life partner, like a husband or a wife, whatever that may be. So But I do find that, when you go in, you will only find it if you're genuinely looking and you're genuinely interested. Like it's a servant-hearted approach, like caring about people and wanting to know more. So yeah, that's kind of in a nutshell what I what I would say.
There's so much in that, and I hope that we capture all of that in the newsletter. Of course, if you haven't subscribed, make sure you do go to the website and subscribe to the newsletter, because you'll get these gems of knowledge. You started out by saying, Elmarie, to be interesting, you have to be interested. And I think that is just golden. We are in the attention economy. Everybody is paying for our attention. That is now really what is the new currency. We have 2 ears and 1 mouth. That tells us something about human design. And I'll be honest with you, the amount of times I go to gatherings where nobody asks you anything very interesting at
No.
all, and we have the same conversation again and again and again. And I'm married to a more introverted person, so I'll go straight into a conversation and say something like, "What do you think about this political situation?" or whatever. And my husband's often kicking me under the table. You can't just lead with that. Why not? God, you're so rude. But, as you get older, and especially when you work for yourself, I think you can afford to take a few more risks. But I love what you've just said. I'm going to reiterate to our listeners now. If you go in with a question and you just said, what is it you're working on right now? Or what is it that's taking your time up right now? You open the door to sharing something with somebody that they're actually interested in, rather than the conversation about, how's it going? How are your children? Oh my goodness. I mean, I used to drink a lot. It's purely because it was so boring going out. I'm sure I had to entertain myself. But you get my point.
Yes.
And at work, I think you end up in the same, have the same conversation again and again and again.
Yeah,
So I
like
dare
small
you.
talk.
Yeah, absolutely. Listeners, I dare you. You would have seen all sorts of things, I'm sure, about communications. And in fact, this is my second. I've recorded another show with a communications expert the other day. And we're about to go into another show with another woman called Lola, who's absolutely wonderful,
Yeah.
about when helping is hurting, or when and when helping should be hurting you. It should be costing you something. There is a cost to this transaction. You do have to be human in this and share,
Yeah.
and it has to be a two-way street.
Human.
We're digressing, but the servant-hearted
Yeah.
leadership is exactly the same. There is a cost to behaving in this way, and not being totally ego-led. Elle, I want to ask you about your motivation, because you've built all sorts of things in your lifetime, including things like the Parent Network, your Spotlight initiatives at work, inclusion groups, things that didn't exist before, that didn't have to exist,
Yeah.
but you really drove to create them, and you really had an impulse and a desire. You're part of a very large organisation, and I know people will be sitting there saying, oh, I'm in a large organisation, I don't have any power, I can't do any of this, I just have to go to work and do the day job. We don't agree. What drives you to do this, and what's your motivation?
So honestly, it does come back to having a servant's heart. I think, and I'm not saying everyone is wired the same way, but for me, when I've did a values test, the deepest values that I have is being two of the top 3 ones was being of service to others, and also just making a genuine difference. So it's just not about me always, but it's about other people. So for example, when I go through something difficult and I learn something valuable from that lesson, honestly, like my first instinct will always be, how can I share this with someone else so that they don't struggle? Or if you find something out at work that, is really useful for other people to use, then sharing that. Or you went on a course, just sharing that. So I feel that there is honestly like so much wisdom and skill and experience locked up inside of people that just never gets shared. And you're sitting right next to someone that can be sharing incredible things with you that you're struggling with, but people just don't naturally do that. So and I think it's just not everyone's tendency, but I do believe that if more people chose to do that, that it could really shift environments that we walk into, whether that is in ministry, in the workplace, in your friendship circles, or whatever that may be. So that for me is really like what drives me, is just being the culture carrier of having that servant's heart, and just whatever I've learned, just make that path a little bit easier for the person next to you, and thinking about other people, because I think it's always comes back to not the me, but think about the other people, because as soon as you do that, that's when it's like the gift of giving, and then you receive back in very interesting and dynamic ways that you might not always have thought of just by giving and helping.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I agree with you. And you and I are slightly separated at birth with this concept that, hey, I found this really hard. Can I help you with the same?
Yes.
And I don't see people honestly living like that. But my motivation really is the fact that I don't want people to have the same length of battle I've had.
No.
If I can show you a shiny shortcut, hey, look, this happened to me and it really wasn't so great. So can I help you
Yes.
avoid the same mistakes? Why would we not do that? But it's not in people's natural, I suppose, their natural gifting, or they're feeling like there's a confidence problem, or they feel vulnerable, or they feel exposed. Can I flip the script on this slightly? Because what I also see is people who are serving to the detriment of their own well-being. And I think you and I both know that this is where we can become very depleted and very fatigued from over-serving and underserving ourselves. So there is a balance here, isn't there, between helping and contributing, and when helping is hurting us because we're giving too much, we've forgotten to do the sort of love my neighbour as myself, and we're just going out and loving our neighbour and ignoring ourselves. But also when we're doing it from a place of ego, I must, and everything else is falling apart underneath the surface. What would you say to people, because I think you've got friends in that space as well and colleagues, who are over-serving or over-giving?
Yeah, I think that it is quite difficult when people tend to lean to the over serving and over giving. And I have definitely found myself in that position where you can become exploited by other people. You can be prone to being bullied, and that's even feedback that have received by being that type of individual. So I think what's always important is to kind of have boundaries and an understanding of where your weaknesses lie, in order for you to be able to stand firm that, yes, I have a servant's heart, I want to help people, but actually, no. I am gonna protect myself in certain areas and have those boundaries. And if you're not too sure whether you have the issue or not, I think get feedback from other people, because they can quickly tell you that, oh, you need to kind of not be that way. Try and just look after yourself a bit more, and self-care, and be a little bit more selfish. I'm not saying selfish in terms of an egotistical way, but just selfish in terms of self-respect instead of self-exploit, if that makes sense. Because I even found myself in a relationship recently where, you'll be giving so much, but it is a two-way street. Are you giving and also receiving back in a healthy, natural way? Or are you just giving and giving and giving because of some other underlying issues? And I'm not saying, everyone is going to go into a deep therapy level conversation of, I've got these attachment wounds and childhood issues and all these different things. But I think the more self-aware you can become around some of those things, it can actually help you to just protect yourself, to not be exploited. And, I can literally sit here and talk all day about very random, crazy examples of where those scenarios have popped up in my life where, yeah, people will just laugh and go, I don't even know why you allowed that, So, yeah, just stand firm in your boundaries, because it is easy when we are so giving and loving and caring and want the best for others. It doesn't mean that you have to do that at the cost of your own almost like self-respect and what can you say, like, yeah, just being able to look after yourself and putting yourself first as well. Yeah, so that's
I
probably what I
think
would
that
say around that.
that would be a great next podcast. And you and I have already talked about some
Mm,
of the things that sort of burn on our hearts, that servant versus martyr. And of course,
yeah.
this also has a cultural context when we talk about martyrdom, when we talk about that sort of very radical behavior. We're talking about serving, not martyring yourself.
Mm,
And I think if we unpick that in a corporate context, it applies to men and women. And I coach many, many more men actually than I do women. Men will also feel that they're martyring themselves, they're over-serving, especially if they're the breadwinner, they're financially responsible. They're then not self-aware enough to be able to communicate it. So then what begins to happen, especially when they hit 45, is they begin to think, I feel totally unseen, I feel totally unheard and unrewarded. I've martyred myself for this family that feel like they're taking advantage of me, and I'm done. And I'm not a relationships expert, but of course it comes up in my work a lot with biometric data, with stress, anxiety, and anger. Men have this situation where they've been suffering in silence. I am a martyr. I am giving, and I'm not getting anything back.
Yes.
And it's, if you are a man listening and having that conversation, let's talk about that from a performance angle, because it's about self-awareness and self-expression. And of course, we can talk about the 5 love languages and meeting each other where we
Gosh,
are.
yes.
I mean, it's fascinating, isn't it? But men do it as well as women. Women serve in domestic roles often and
Yeah.
overgive. And there's a boundaries conversation. There's a boundaries and a communication issue that we can solve very quickly with self-awareness and consciousness work.
Yes.
So thank you for speaking on that so clearly. And I think we should definitely pick that up again. It's crucial, and both corporately and from a personal communication perspective, that we get this servant, not martyr mindset
Yes.
right. Can I ask you about a deeper why? Because you're currently building a marketplace ministry as well. I'd love you to talk a little bit about that. But I also want to find out really about the way that your faith has shaped the work you do and how that marketplace ministry is coming into fruition, where it started and where you're hoping that this might go, because you're connecting with so many interesting people, both corporately, personally, and from a ministry perspective.
Yeah. So I think I believe definitely that we are built for connection and we're not sort of designed to be alone, um and that's not something that I just feel. I feel that that's more something that I believe at a deeper faith level, and it's something that I see born that's, it's everywhere you look. It's just about connection. Um so that speaks to me something so fundamental about, what it means for us to be human. This is also coming back to your podcast name, rich, simple human. We are made to need each other, to carry something for one another, and that's probably always been my operating belief, I think, and the entire being of kind of how I'm wired. And, when someone has a need, my first thought is always like, well, who do I know who can help? And not kind of just doing it on your own and just struggling alone. And, who carries that wisdom and the experience and the connection? And I think, like, even as a leader building great teams, you are never going to know everything, but you get the people around you that know something to help you thrive and kind of bring the vision that you have to life. The beautiful thing of that is that it definitely goes both ways, and you carry something for them as well that is a gift, but it's kind of a two-way street. And I think because of all of that, kind of building to connect and needing people, that's sort of how I then got this idea around my ministry approach, or kind of business that's kind of at the startup phase, around creating this digital marketplace for kingdom-led businesses, because I find that there's so many WhatsApp groups and, people that you're connecting with. And again, the wisdom, the experience, the knowledge, everything that's locked up in these people. You may have a business startup, and you need to have an accountant, you need to have a consultant, you need to have a tax person, or whatever it is that you're going into. But finding these people, in my own personal experience, and anyone can challenge me if there's a better way, has just not been that easy. Because yes, you've got LinkedIn and it's the person's personal profile mostly. If people follow you on social media, they follow your personal profile. They don't really go and look at your business profile. But it's almost like bringing everything together and consolidating it into an approach where you can just filter and quickly find who it is that you're looking for, at the budget you're looking for, the specific tags that it is that you need within your startup or within your business, or whether even if it's just a coach that you need. So I think that's sort of how it got birthed, is around just the why, is around how I am wired as a person, and how that then directly translated into an idea and something that I then am starting to build. And of course, the business side of that is kind of at the inception phase, but then the podcast that I run is to, build that network once again, because people know people, and you then kind of get to even understand a lot more about their wisdom and their knowledge and their personal experiences of where they've been, where their faith journey started, and how that all kind of linked up into them now being a CEO and founder of various different organizations. And I suppose that's also in another, not a selfish way, but in a way you are getting direct access by putting someone on podcast. It's again that two-way street. You are interviewing someone for your podcast, you're getting all their wisdom and pearls of wisdom and knowledge and experience, but at the same time as giving back, you are now promoting whatever it is that they're doing within your social circles, so that they also getting back. And I think that's always, for me, it's about, with networking and connecting, it's not just always about, oh, like I just want, but okay, now that you want, what are you going to give back? It's always a two-way street. Even with mentoring and coaching relationships that I've had within the workplace, it would always be, what can I actually also give back to this person? Because they are very senior, they are giving time to me. Did I go on a really interesting session or a course or whatever that may be, that I can share something with them that can help them in their career? Because let's face it, we're not all knowing individuals running around. Everyone can still learn at every single level, whether you're a CEO or just a graduate starting in a business. So yeah, that's quite a long-winded answer. I don't know if that kind of covered it.
It gives me so many things to ask you more about,
Yeah.
Elle, because this desire to serve is there. And in the marketplace, you're right, it can be very messy. Social media is making this even more complicated. And what I'm interested in asking you more about is, it feels like we are coming in our lifetimes into this sort of post-capitalist model where the direct to market, the direct consumer offer is going to become even more important. So as we move into this space where we're doing this direct to consumer or direct to market, we need to be able to have the routes to do that, but we also need to have the networks. And what you're building allows individuals to go directly to each other, especially when they're in the build phase, and start finding the support and the resources that they need. Elle, can you see how this might grow? What's the biggest challenge been so far? And where did the vision come from for this?
Yeah, so I think the vision for me was really a divinely inspired moment, probably a year and a half ago, where I just had what I can call an unction of, okay, I need to do something. And it was all about doing something for the kingdom and being able to give back. So I went to a conference, indirectly like made a deal with God and said, listen, if I start this, this is the percentage of the profits that I will be giving back in investing in, whether that is startup businesses or, a church plant kind of building team, or, a women's center or whatever that may be. So the idea came, yeah, and kind of a long time ago in that way. But I think for me, it is about just kind of getting the right connections before it can grow. So that's why I started the podcast first. It's just to kind of start building my network and my community as coming fresh, coming from a career, a kind of workplace environment into this new marketplace environment. It's two very different worlds, and it's two very different groups of networks. So it's not that you can kind of lean on your corporate network for whatever it is that you're building within the business environment. So that's why I started the podcast, to then sort of start shaping, okay, I'm going to connect with all these CEOs and founders, have the two-way street, start helping them understand, what it is that I'm doing. And like I said, sometimes it just takes one person to see what it is that you are wanting to build, whatever your vision is, and they may be the exact person that is assigned to your destiny to help you grow and get to that next level in whatever it is that you need to do. And so at this, it's kind of inception phase for me, it's more about the networking and the connecting and forming those kind of real authentic relationships first, before I think I'm going to go on to the next phase and then actually starting to build the product and then start launching and going into the marketplace fully in that way. So I don't know if I've even answered the question properly,
Uh,
but
you
just kind of
have.
gone
Uh,
off. Yeah.
and what's so interesting about this conversation is I hope that people are now listening, because what we're talking about here in a secular world is a sort of a passion project, a side hustle. Some of the words that we're hearing used, part-time founder, starting something new. We're watching people look for passive income streams.
Yeah.
Watching people look for diversification. We know that AI is going to have a massive impact on our roles and the workplace in the next, well, I'm going to say 5 years, probably 2. So what are we going to do next? People that will be successful are able to leverage their networks and truly understand what their capacities and values or calling is, and then work from that place of strength. What I want to ask you about, Elle, is knowing that we're working. So there's 2 ways of starting a business, isn't there? And I know this because I've been in the founder space myself. You can either look to the marketplace and think, what do people need, and deliver it? Or you can look inside and think, what gifts and talents have I got? Let me give them away. And they're 2 totally different starting places. And sometimes you swap between the 2. But what I see you doing is knowing that you've got a gift and talent for communicating and connecting, and then leveraging that into a space that the marketplace needs. What would you say to people who come to you and say, "Oh, I don't like my job, or I need a side hustle, or I'm going to found something," and you're going to advise them to start from 2 different angles? What do you say to those sorts of people?
Probably for me, it would be, listen more deeply than you have before. I think that sometimes whoever we get around, like different people and different connections, and, kind of always, yeah, we're always networking every single day of your life, but you're not kind of always connecting with all of those different people. But beyond kind of the networking and then getting into the connection, I think it's about, you know, what are you able to get out of those people that is in your life that they can kind of help you like on the path of what you are on, right? So I don't know. It definitely comes back to always listen, understand what is it that they have to offer. Yes, what is it that you can give back to them. But in order for you to be able to move forward, you have to be curious and ask the right questions and genuinely get deeper into people's worlds and understanding more about them in order to see where the connection can lie for that to be valuable in whatever it is that you're building or wherever you are going. Because as I said, there can always just be in that one connection, and that can shift the total trajectory of everything that it is that you are doing into kind of this next phase of life, just by being curious and listening and asking the right questions.
I agree with you. And I think the reminder there is to go out and listen, but also go out and listen to yourself. So know yourself and know your audience. And that's where the synergy lies, because otherwise we end up in this burnout. The founder burnout world is real. And I
Yeah.
see founders going out into the marketplace, starting with a passion project, but the passion dies, the fire inside them dies, and then they burn out very rapidly. If you're really rooted in the gifts and talents that you've been given, and you're able to maintain that level of passion because there's an alignment there, then away you go. And I don't know if you saw the news headlines over the weekend, but Helena Bonham Carter had been selected to be part of the White Lotus series. She was started filming, and there was a press release to say she'd left the set after a week. They weren't in alignment. And this word's really crucial, because if we're not aligned with what we're doing, we risk burnout because we have no passion. We're not aligned, we're not connected, we're not motivated. You're in a job that becomes a grind. And
Yeah.
I think this is so key to just keep dialing into that. Where is my passion for this? And is that aligned, or am I totally out of alignment, to use a secular word, and pushing at a closed door, I suppose.
Yeah. And I'd probably say as well that I saw something around, like investing in belonging isn't soft, it's strategic. And kind of when you treat people as whole human beings, the return on investment, if I could call it that, it's quite real. And it's not, I'm not saying it's always that simple, but essentially like when when people are around and they feel that they belong, that that's when they'll stay. And when they stay, that's when you're not going to be spending all this money to kind of replace them and kind of try and get new people into your business or into the wherever it is that you're working and things like that. But for people to truly feel seen and valued, it's that's where you have to go above and beyond, because that's what people want. And it's kind of in that discretionary that the effort and the real results would live. And I've seen this played out so many times in my career as well, where communities were built inside organizations, and they've actually really carried people through in their hardest moments of life, whether that's redundancies or bereavements or illnesses, or like the parent network that we spoke about before as well. And that support is where someone has actually taken the time to build something to be able to bring people in and for them to feel wanted and seen. And I probably like smaller organizations would be doing that really well, right? Because naturally, I find like where I've worked in very small organizations that people were very family orientated. It's like everyone just becomes friends, and people will do their barbecues and things together, especially in South Africa. But in the larger corporate organizations, it comes more down to whether your leader is that culture carrier, or if you've got someone in your team that has a genuine gift for building a community, and they're always the one driving the, come guys, let's go have a lunch and do this and do that, for people to kind of feel that connection. And you were talking a little bit about AI as well. And I think honestly, like in this age of AI, that the human gift is becoming more valuable than anything in a company, because as you can imagine, there's like a bit of a zombie nation type initiative happening where everyone's just on the next AI tool, and it's just all digital. And even with the younger generations, where they're just coming into the marketplace, and everyone's on TikTok, and it's just social media, and it's kind of like this very different era of where I've grown up in, for example. Whereas, and I'm not saying they can't socialize and go out, of course they do, but I do believe that, there should be quite a focus on just the human gift and soft skills and what humans bring to the table, not just AI, because AI can't replace that human like judgment and empathy and all of those different things. And for me as well, I think the best example that I can think of is when I worked at one of the investment banks a couple of years ago, and we were just like 12 women becoming such great, like we literally would go every day, go to gym together, have lunch together, weekends we'll plan things, exciting things together. I was even bridesmaid to one of my friends in Australia, because eventually everyone scattered, and now even after a decade later, we are all still connected on like a WhatsApp group. And I think that's what belonging can become when it's nurtured, and when you are really investing in that, and kind of, if there's someone driving that. And I don't know if like the future, I haven't kind of paid too much attention on future state workforce type roles, but I think within organizations there is probably a place for someone carrying that hat of just a community builder and making sure the human element stays in place, and it's not all just technology driven and everything's getting taken over by AI, essentially. Not that I'm an expert, but I'm just from my own personal human perspective, I'd probably say that.
Yeah, I love that. It's also often a female skill, the networking and connecting. And if we remember about our sort of evolutionary psychology, men are out hunting, fast, quick communication. It's focused, it's driven, it's targeted. Women are back in the caves trying to keep the tribe alive. So it's very, very different behavior that's rooted in us. And people can argue that that's, disappeared, but it simply hasn't. We're still attracted to bright, sweet, coloured, shiny objects as if they were fruit and berries. And of course, unfortunately, they're often Haribos. These are subconscious evolutionary designs that we must now overcome in a world that has changed massively. I think it's really interesting to talk about women in banking, communication, and networking, and that feminine trait. Again, that would take up an entire other podcast.
Sure. Yeah.
But women in community is another angle that I'm really excited to explore, especially as we move into the great wealth transfer, $84 trillion changing hands in the next however many years. Over 50% will actually come to women in the Western world. We've got a very different time coming. And this is very interesting about how we build
Bless
communities
you.
and how we move forwards. Thank you. I want to ask you to round off our show today about why people find it so hard to ask for help. You and
Mm,
I are people that do ask for help. In fact, you and I are connected because of our lovely mutual friend. I
yes,
asked
the
him for help.
connector for sure,
He
Ian.
then referred me to you, and I know that you have also asked him for help as well. When we go out and ask for what we need, and again, there's a really strong biblical concept in this as well, often we find what we need because we articulate our desires, and then that those desires are met. Why do you think people find it hard to ask for help, Elle?
I honestly think it's fear. Um, to me, that's always what's underneath all of it, fear and intimidation. And I've been on so many, as you can imagine, like in the banking industry, they're always offering all these different training sessions on how you should network and what it is that you need to do. But when you ask people on these sessions, when you're in kind of breakout groups and things like that, what holds them back, it always comes back to fear. Um, and that fear is like multidimensional. I don't think it's always just one way. People have fear of, going somewhere alone. Like, oh my gosh, like I can't go to this networking event on my own, or that I want to say the wrong thing. I've even seen people that would be so fearful just talking to a really senior person because they are not senior enough. And maybe there's kind of the political dynamics within the organization or whatever that may be, that's then creating this wiring in their brain of, I could never do that. They might feel like they're just not interesting enough, or they just don't want, what if people don't want to talk to me? But honestly, like for me, if I could say to people, and something that I would want them to know is that you are not alone. That generally, like most people in a room will have some sort of feeling of, ooh, like I'm alone at this event now. I don't know how to do this. Um, and sometimes some people look really at ease with kind of, managing, because they're just managing the discomfort and it's not eliminating it. And, even if you think about it, there's, having met someone recently, like, you've got your neurotypical and neurodiverse, and sometimes neurodiverse people they've got certain types of jobs and they are forced to have to go into these type of environments where they have to socialize, they have to do those different things, but it's not a natural place for them to be. But what I've learned through the person is that it actually is a learned skill. So even if you're an introvert or you're neurodiverse or whatever that may be, you can learn to do those things. So for me, I would say just walk in there anyway, just bring in your full authentic self and like have that mission of, okay, I'm not going to go in like, oh, I just hope someone's going to talk to me, or, like just kind of intimidated mindset, but go in and say like, I'm here to find the right person for X. What is it that you're looking for? Like, is it something in your career, a business connection? Are you looking for a new friend? I don't know, whatever it might be. Give yourself that purpose to go into the room, and suddenly like the fear goes away, because it's not about you anymore, but it's about the mission, about a bigger picture. And also like just being in these different corporate environments for all these years, and having done, so many networking events and things like that, it is really much more about who you know than what you know. So keep that in mind, because you are going in to a room, meeting new people, expanding your network, and that one right connection can literally collapse like years of struggle in one single conversation. You can get a breakthrough. You can even get a new job. This has even happened to me through one skip level meeting of a manager's manager. I met this guy that I did one kind of dummy project for him to help me with my own kind of growth. And through that, then I was able to get a job through him in his team 2 years later. And he's the manager that was like the person that promoted me, and like meant so much in my career just by having one conversation. So, you know, the fact that I'm saying like it's not about what you know, but about who you know. It's not about being cynical. It's just the truth of how the world works, right? And knowing that can actually make connecting feel more worth the effort, that you're not just going out there like, oh, I'm just here again for another networking event and I have to be here and I must. No, go in, not selfishly, but go in knowing that whoever you're meeting today could be your breakthrough. It could be your next friend, your next husband, wife. I don't know, anything. It's just remarkable. People, it's like social capital just is the new currency. You just want people because they mean everything. And like your AI bot is not exactly going to give you the same effect, that you're looking for. So, yeah.
There's another podcast we've just recorded, put down to record. Social capital is the new currency. You're
Yeah.
so right. And
Yes.
I do a lot of timeline work with my clients where we look back. And when you are able to look back, like you've just said, to where did that connection originally come from?
Yeah.
And you follow it back, you begin to evidence the fact that that is true. One connection in the most unlikely of places changes the trajectory and collapses timelines that you
Yes.
could never have normally dealt with. And I'm just going to urge everybody who's listening, if that is something you would like to do, you could probably chat GPT your way through doing it, but timeline that in terms of looking backwards and seeing, okay, what's currently happening now that's, 80% of my revenue comes from 20% of my clients, for example. We know that rule applies to most things. Where did that network come from? How did that happen? You can chase it back to one point. So when next time you think I can't be bothered or I'm not going to reply to that email, just think, well, I don't actually know what the universe is going to do here. And I think people
Yes.
sometimes think that they're almighty and they're controlling everything. And the reality is they're simply not. There's so much in this, Elle, and I
Yeah.
was just laughing when you were talking. I went to a networking event some time ago and I was pretty much out of practice. It was a really big event. And I thought, how am I going to tackle this? I didn't know
Yeah.
anybody. And I thought, I'm going to go in and ask for help. So I'm going to go in and find somebody and say, hello, I'm new. Can you help me? I need somebody to talk to. And of course, as I walked up, I mean, it was a huge building. It took ages to get there. And the whole time I was like,
Yeah.
oh, how am I going to do this? Walked into the room and I knew I had from the entrance to the window to be able to have this conversation with somebody because I knew nobody. And as I was walking in, I was like walking in like, okay, this is how I'm going to do it. This is who am I going to do this to? Who am I going to do? And of course, I got right the way to the window. And as I got to the window, there were two very young men standing there. And I was like, this is just a classic, isn't it?
Yeah.
Some old bird comes up and she's like, hi. Sorry to interrupt. I wonder if I could ask you for a favour. I know absolutely nobody here at all, and I would love to have somebody to talk to whilst I figure out my tactics. Is
Yeah.
that okay?
Yes.
And of course, that's exactly what I did. And the two of them, we had the funniest time. They're like, oh, that was a good. I was like, well, how else are you going to get in the room? And they're like, yeah. And I was like, how are you two here? And they'd come
Yes.
together and they didn't know anybody either. But you've got to be quite bold and brave because everybody else is in the same boat. And the people that get ahead are the ones that, have a strategy, have a tactic. And like you just said, I'm going to use your words. We're not eliminating our discomfort. We're just managing our discomfort.
Yes.
How am I going to manage my discomfort in this situation? Okay, I need a strategy. It's still going to be deeply uncomfortable, but I'm going to do it anyway.
Yeah.
And no one's watching. No one's looking at me.
No one actually cares.
No one cares.
They're just all kind of there with the same vibe. It's not like you all go in groups of friends to networking events. You are on your own and just get on with it. And like once you get in there, and I love what you were saying about almost like finding a good connector, because sometimes when you go into new seasons of life, which, let's face it, like there's different seasons of life, even right now, the data in the UK is saying that there's kind of like a real epidemic or pandemic, I don't know what you want to call it, on loneliness. And I would say, like, even for me personally, like when your circumstances are changing, like going from, a comfortable married life into divorced life, and when all your friends have families and they're settled and not everyone's always just available to go out and do things, you kind of feel that, not saying like you feel lonely, like, but it's the edges of that when your circumstances are changing. But you can't wait for the community to come to you. Like you have to go out and find it, even if it feels scary. So I would say, even for people, like don't feel isolated or lonely, like get out there, find your people. And that could be through faith, through a hobby, through an app, through the gym, whatever that may be. And sometimes you'll see someone that is quite extroverted and out there, and you can see they just kind of know anybody and everybody, maybe latch onto them for a bit and say, can you maybe help me, like introduce me to a couple of people, or get me, connected, or even at that conference. Or if you aren't really comfortable going on your own, take someone that is really confident in networking with you, and you can even learn the skills from them, because as I said, it is a skill to be learned. Not everyone is extroverted or neurotypical. People have to learn these skills and are able to survive the wild west of networking world, networking events. And community is really important, I would say, for me as well, that if you don't have a community around you, and especially for me right now, like going through the stormy season in life, like navigating divorce and things like that, I wouldn't be standing if it wasn't for the people that's around me. And it's not about just having one community, like, oh, I just need a faith community. You'll have different community, professional community, business community, this community, or children's community. There's so many different ages, walks of life, professions, contexts of different people. And for me personally, like, that is what's definitely held me together and really helped me. But get out there and find the people, find the communities, create the little communities. And if you don't know how to do it yourself, like, find that light bulb person who's going to guide the way and kind of help you along the way to do that.
Practice your lines, because I cannot tell you how excruciating that experience was, but it changed everything for me.
Yeah.
And even if you're going to the gym, you might meet somebody and be like, hey, I'm quite new here. I just wondered if you knew anybody.
Yeah. Or show me the machine, or chat, like even at the gym, like even in the fitness classes, like, if you do body pump or whatever, and you kind of just start with one of those dopamine induced type of conversation starters, and whether you've got the same one-liner that you use in any community setting that you get into, memorize your one-liner, form the connection. People will kind of immediately like get drawn. The dopamine is high. They feel happy. Like, this person's interesting. They don't ask me how I am or how my day is. They're asking me something totally out of the ordinary. And now I want to get to know you. It's like, oh my gosh, we should have a coffee. We should do this. There's skills and there's tactics, and you don't have to be a natural extroverted person running around forming a connection with every single person that you meet. You can learn the skills to be able to survive and just do it, So
I think you and I should do a masterclass on this. I'm just writing it down. Communication and connection is a learned skill. And I agree with you. I have had to really practice this, working for myself, running my own business, connecting as I want to, because I know what I want to do. But in order to do that, I need to find my destiny helpers. And to do that, I need to go and ask for it. And it can be, I also think that sort of no is not a no, it's a not yet.
Yeah.
I'm like, next other. Oh, okay. No, great. Do you know anybody else? Hey, would you like to come on my podcast? No. Great. Thank you so much for letting me know. Can you think of anybody else?
That's it. Because they will know someone again. Yeah.
Everybody knows somebody.
Yeah.
We have got so much we can talk about. And
I know. I love it.
We're going to get that booked in. Before we go today, the best place to contact you normally is LinkedIn.
Yes, definitely.
So I just wanted to remind anybody to look for Elmarie Greenaway, HSBC. But also, can you just tell us, and I will put it in the show notes below, the links to Eden Hive, if people want to have a look at that work, and anywhere else that you'd like to direct them to.
Yeah, so I would say definitely www.joinedenhive.com. That's where all my business links, social media links will be on there. And the Friends of Eden Hive tab is where the podcast recordings are sitting. So I think I'm probably sitting at about 20 episodes now, which I can't believe since September I've been able to manage to find people to kind of continuously come onto the podcast. But I'm very passionate about that and just love meeting people and hearing their stories. Again, it's about like interest in people and what it is that they've gone through in their life. Then LinkedIn is definitely just my name and surname, Elmarie Greenaway Elmarie Greenaway, and then personal social media is just my name and surname as well. So if you want to follow or be a friend, it's all open and public. Please do get in touch, and I always love meeting new people. And if you want to come on my podcast and you're a CEO and founder of any kind of business, I'd love to meet you as well.
And I think what we might do as well, I've just got a little idea up my sleeve of a networking event I think you and I should do. Definitely.
Gosh, that'll be fun.
On social media. Like, think about a tactic we've got, practice some questions, and do it as a bit of a trial master with that. So look out for Elle and I on our adventures, probably in London, although we do tend to do European roaming. Actually, a bit through Cape Town would be nice at some point.
Oh
But
my
anyway, that's another
gosh,
conversation. Wouldn't that be
anytime.
great?
Love that.
Absolutely. Who knows what's coming our way? Until next time, if you're not already on the newsletter and not receiving the articles that I publish, please go to richsimplehuman.com or lindseyfrances.co.uk and you will get all of the downloads. Remember that we've just gone live with the Energy Pillars assessment as well, which you will find there. That's a very exciting piece of work that uses data. If you are using Aura or Weep, you'll be interested in seeing that. If you would like to come on the show, of course, and you've got something interesting to talk about that's related to being a rich and simple human, I'd love to hear from you. But until next time, please join me in thanking my absolutely wonderful guest, Elmarie. And we just hope that you all continue to be bold, to be brave, and to be a rich, simple human from now until the end.